Okay, so we're diving into this stack of sources all about Colorado today. We've got articles, notes, research, quite a bit here.
Yeah, a good mix.
And they all seem to paint this picture of a state with, well, incredible highs, literally, and a really distinctive character.
Definitely.
So, our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack these materials, pull out the core insights about what makes the peaks and plains of Colorado really tick.
And what I think these sources really get at isn't just what's physically there in Colorado, but more how its dramatic landscape and, frankly, pretty intense history have shaped its identity.
That makes sense. It's like a narrative forged by geology and human actions.
Exactly. Both together.
So let's maybe start with that historical foundation the sources dig into. Before all the booms that brought waves of settlers, who was actually there first, according to these materials?
Right. The sources make it clear that these lands were originally home to indigenous peoples. They specifically mention the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne tribes.
Their presence is really foundational then.
Absolutely. Foundational to the history that's covered here.
Then, boom, the 19th century hits. And those massive gold rushes? How do the sources talk about that period's impact?
Oh, they describe it as utterly transformative,
Yeah,
explosive even.
right.
It brought huge numbers of people incredibly quickly, driving really rapid development across what was then a territory.
And this surge, it directly led to statehood.
Yes, in 1876, which is why, as the sources note, Colorado gets that nickname, the Centennial State.
Ah, okay. Because it joined the Union exactly 100 years after the Declaration of Independence.
Precisely.
And the sources, they really seem to emphasize how things like the railroad, mining, ranching, they weren't just economic drivers, right?
Yeah.
They profoundly shaped the culture, too.
Yeah, definitely the culture and the state's character. But it wasn't only about, taking from the land.
What do you mean?
Well, the sources also mentioned that environmental concerns started cropping up relatively early on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, leading to conservation efforts that, well, they're still relevant today.
So there's this tension.
Absolutely. The material shows this inherent tension throughout Colorado's history. You've got the drive to exploit resources, build fast,
Hmm.
balanced eventually by this growing recognition that they needed to preserve its unique natural beauty.
And the sources kind of suggest this past shapes today's character, like fostering independence and a deep connection to the land.
Yes, exactly. A deep, though sometimes contested, tie to the land. That seems to be a key takeaway.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Moving from history to, well, exploration. What places do the sources really highlight as essential for understanding or visiting Colorado?
Well, they list the big icons, often pointing out what makes them significant. You've got Rocky Mountain National Park, for instance.
Right, known for the alpine scenery.
Stunning alpine scenery, yeah, and
Yeah.
lots of wildlife. That gets mentioned a lot.
And then the cities.
Yep, the major urban centers. Denver, the Mile High City, it's highlighted for its lively art scene and that whole craft brewery culture that's really taken off.
Okay. And Boulder?
Boulder gets a mention too, more for its connection to outdoor stuff like hiking, and it has that vibrant, college town energy.
Gotcha. What else?
The sources also point south, down to Colorado Springs. They specifically note the Garden of the Gods.
Oh, the Red Rock formations.
Yeah, absolutely stunning, apparently. And then further afield, you see mentions of historic towns like Durango and also the Great Sand Dunes National Park.
Great sand dunes. That sounds different.
It's described as a really unique natural feature. Unexpected, maybe.
So it really shows the diversity, doesn't it? Across the state, you've got towering peaks, urban hubs, these unique geological spots, remnants of the past, all based on these sources.
It's a state of incredible variety, that's for sure.
Now, there's one specific point the sources highlight that jumps us forward into more modern history. A fact the material calls out as particularly noteworthy.
Oh, I think I know what you mean.
Colorado was the first U.S. state to legalize recreational cannabis.
That's the one. The sources pinpoint 2012 as that moment. And they really note that this decision fundamentally changed the path of, well, American social and legal history regarding cannabis.
That's a huge claim.
It is. And one source even sort of hints that this pioneering move fits with a certain independent, maybe experimental spirit.
Tracing back through its history.
Yeah, maybe traceable back through Colorado's historical booms and busts, that kind of independent streak.
Interesting connection. So, okay, pulling it all together then.
Yeah.
Why visit Colorado according to these sources? What's the main invitation here?
The material seems to boil it down to a pretty powerful blend, actually. You've got high-altitude adventure, clearly.
Right, the mountains.
Rich cultural experiences in the cities and towns.
Yeah.
And just Spectacular views pretty much everywhere.
So it's the whole package.
Kind of. The source is presented as a state that actively encourages you, the visitor, to explore, to play, to connect with its natural environment and its vibrant culture.
Through things like hiking, skiing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hiking, skiing, enjoying music festivals, checking out that craft beer scene they mentioned. It's about getting involved.
It really sounds like the sources describe a place where the deep history and that unique geography aren't just background noise.
Right. Oh.
They're actively shaping the present-day experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're intertwined. Which, kind of leads us perfectly into the final question for you, our listener.
Yeah.
Considering that really dramatic mix, you've got the ancient landscapes, the transformative history like the gold rush we talked about, and then these very modern developments like legalizing cannabis. How do you think Colorado's unique geography and history ultimately shape its present-day identity and spirit? Something to ponder.